think I must have been 10 or 11 years old, and I made like a pinch pot goblet, raku fired, and I really never looked back from there. I bought that wheel and my first electric kiln when I was 15 or 16 with money that I had saved mowing lawns and doing landscaping. I started selling pots about 16 years old. And yeah, the rest, I just followed my feet. I was 19. I dropped out of art school. I went to Jingdezhen and I met Jim Leedy there. If you grew up in Kansas City and you're into the arts, he is the man. And I met him in a bar. Ended up working with him for about 3 years. He knew I really wanted to wood fire. And he made a phone call and helped get me into NAU in Flagstaff, Arizona. I just did nothing but wood firing for a year in a university setting, so I learned a lot about kilns, a lot about atmospheric firing. I think that's part of the reason I do salt glazing today. Salt has some of the aspects that you can get from wood, that directional flame and that sort of chaos, but it's more controllable with gas. And yeah, I set up the pottery in Arkansas, and I was so broke. I was looking for answers, and I got that call. It changed my life. The Leach Pottery was the next port of call, and just hit the ground running. That was 2014. Once I saw the UK ceramic scene, I thought, oh, there's an opportunity here for somebody to make a big range of salt glazed domestic ware. If I was describing my work, it's contemporary country pottery, focused on line and balance and surface quality, everyday working pots with a 21st century eye. So this bottle works out about 3.5 liters. I started making this size because it was accessible for wine and cider, and I feel like its scale is approachable. So this bottle is 3.6 kilos. It's thrown to 35 centimeters. And the clay I use is a salt glazed body. I like to work with it really soft. So 3.6 kilos, centered, thrown to height. The shape, when I'm throwing it, it's kind of a traditional American crock shape and bottle shape. I love the Pennsylvania and Ohio 19th century salt glazed pots. They've got a certain line about them. And so it's kind of like that. And like all my pots, I'm after a line, a long continuous line. It doesn't take up a lot of table space because it's not bulbous, you know, it's a little bit taller. The pot's going to be addressed to make sure the cork fits properly. It's no good if the cork doesn't fit. Then the pot is turned in the chuck. Turn it in the chuck so that I can see the majority of the body and make sure and just follow that continuous line to a nice finish, which always has an edge to separate it from the table. And I think that's so important to making a pot not look like it's glued down. I like for pots like this to sort of, in all the pots I make, I want them to feel like they're taking a deep breath instead of sort of slumping in. So once the pot's turned, it's pretty much ready to be finished. I can throw the rings. I don't even know the name of this ring, but it's the tap rim. So I'll throw those off the hump. They get dried with the torch. They're very sort of quick. I need to make that sort of rough shape, just making sure that it kind of has a relationship to the handles I've pulled and the rim, and those are set aside. once I've made sure the corks and the tap are gonna fit, I'm measuring the tap and the cork hole to the high side of the cork. If it's leather hard and you've got the big width of the cork, by the time it shrinks, it should seat really nicely. That was one of the things I really wanted this to show, because I get asked about that a lot. Well, how do you make all the corks fit? Well, I've got a gauge, basically, and that's the high side of the cork. The handles are all pulled from coils in advance and left to set up on the workbench. It is a very North American way of doing handles, but it's the way I learned it. It's the way I like. But always when I'm pulling handles, I'm trying to address the edge. I'm trying to make sure that it has a fine enough edge that it looks really refined so that it doesn't look chunky. I want it to look sleek, even though it is pretty substantial, which it needs to be, especially for a pot like this. My father-in-law showed up at the pottery 2.5 years ago, and he had a big cider press, and all these demijohns, all this kit. We had talked about it because there's apples everywhere around here. And then we found all these cider apples down the road, and I asked the guy who owns the orchard down the road if I could have the apples. And he said, yeah. Yeah, we did 66 gallons this year. I'm still new to it. We're still learning all the time. I'm looking forward to this year when I'm out traveling and seeing my potter friends, taking a flagon with me, you know, of my homemade, and just being able to share it around. You know, that's part of handmade pots and using them. It's just such a nice thing that I wish more people had a chance to do. I try as hard as I can to keep my prices where people will use them. That's such a crazy part of ceramics, you know. We've got to make a living. But I don't want them to collect dust. I tell people every year, like, the kind of pots I make, I don't want them behind glass, unless it's the oven door. And I really just try and keep that philosophy all the time.